Wisdom Factory, a forum for people who have knowledge, experience, and wisdom to share with the world. We're in season 2, which is all about wisdom technologies. And this episode is number 4
of this season.
Yeah, of the season. And today we have invited PATRICIA Albere, and she is going to start us off today with a meditation.
Instead of the music, a meditation. So close your eyes and follow her.
Okay, so just take a moment and let yourself maybe stop what you're doing, relax, and just allow yourself to sink more deeply into a kind of intimate sense of yourself in the moment. You can sense into the quality of the air on your skin, the subtle quality of your own breath. And just allowing whatever particular sensations that you're aware of in your body, just relaxing around that and letting them be as they are. And sensing into whatever emotions might be there, feelings, subtle mood. And it's from that place of like being with a lover, like you just want to get close, you want to just see what's there. Touch it, allow it. And then lastly, with your head center, just be aware of what's happening in your head, not the content, but the, is it open and vast? Is it buzzing? Is it like a ticker tape of ideas? Or is it quiet and calm? And then lastly, just to open your awareness to being present with my voice, connection to me and to Heidi and Mark, and all the other people from around the world who are, tuned into this particular conversation and this coming together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PATRICIA, for this introduction in our show of today. And welcome everybody in the audience who is listening now or listening later, also on YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are very happy that you are here. And as you maybe know, this season is about wisdom technologies. We had already some episodes about outside technologies, let's say, and this is an interior technology which we want to talk about today. And actually in our very first episode with John Dupuy, we had a sort of a mixture. He presented an audio technology with which you can go easily into the meditative spaces. And as you see here up on the upper links, he is sort of a sponsor of us. So if you are interested in looking what he can offer you to reinforce your attempts to come into quietness and to get away from stress and all that, please click on the link and have a look. So thank you. Before we introduce Alberto, I wanted to say. This is
Alberto, no, non siamo in Italia, siamo in America qua.
Yeah, before we introduce Patricia Albere, we want to say some words about us.
Okay, we have been deeply inspired by Ken Wilber and the Integral Worldview. It has helped us to understand so much that about literally everything. It's helped us to create this show, The Wisdom Factory.
And first of all, to get to know each other, because we got to know by talking about integral topics on social media. So we are so inspired about this worldview, and we want to spread it in the world, and that's why we created the show. And we are so grateful that so many beautiful people say yes when we ask if they would join us, as today Patricia Albere. Yes. She is a spiritual teacher, and she is the founder of the Evolutionary Collective. When she says EC, that means Evolutionary Collective. We found out. And she has also an ongoing radio show for many, many, many years.
A couple of years, a long time. How many years?
About 4.
4 years? Yeah. That's long in this rapidly changing technology world. It is. Okay.
So do you want to?
Sure, I can talk a little, read a little about her, really. But Patricia Albere is at ground zero of an evolutionary stream of spiritual awakening, one in which we learn to go beyond individual psychology and transformation into a new space of mutual awakening, or interbeing, or we-ness. She's the founder and director of the Evolutionary Collective, an internationally known contemporary spiritual teacher and author. Her unique discovery of the essential components that create an awakened we space is transforming our understanding of what is possible in that space between us, and in creating new fields of higher collective consciousness. Her work creates a powerful field of shared consciousness that reveals previously unimagined potentials for human development that can and is moving humanity far beyond the limits of simply personal growth. She's worked with over 150,000 people in the last 40 years. Her mastery as a transformative teacher is now innovating a new field of intersubjective awakening and post-personal development.
Okay, wonderful. How does it feel when Mark is reading this?
Oh, lovely, actually. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. And would you like to add something about you? I think some of the people won't know you, so a little bit more about your background. How is it that you are doing this? I mean, everybody concerned with growing up themselves, and they're sitting alone somewhere, you know, meditating.
Lonely.
And you do such a different thing.
Yeah, it's true. Well, for me, I started my journey when I was 18, so I've never had a regular job. You know, I mean, I've only ever been working in the field of transformation or spiritual work. It's a good thing it works well, because I don't really know how to do other things. I don't think I would be very useful. But I worked initially with Werner Erhard, who was the originator of EST and Landmark, and many young people have no clue what any of that is, but all of the coaching schools. So if anybody's a coach, if you know anything about, you know, personal development and coaching, it arose from the work that we did in the 70s, basically. And so I had this crazy, intense training for 12 years working for him. I was very young. It was very empowering to women. So it never even occurred to me that I wouldn't be in front of people, getting up in front of Lincoln Center, you know, inspiring people to do things, you know, ordering people around, actually, you know, at 22 years old, who were like working for the UN and owned multi-million-dollar companies and were famous actors. I mean, I had no idea. I shouldn't have had anything to say. And he was very supportive of, the work with those people in the domain of transformation. So I had a very interesting, kind of got my PhD in that, and then moved on to Osho, which in Europe, many people are familiar with Rajneesh or Osho's work.
Yeah.
And as we talked before, one of the big awakenings in my life that's affected the work I'm doing now was with a beautiful German sannyasin named Peter, who was from Berlin. He was a Berliner. And so we had a 4-year love affair that really was the foundation for this work. And it was one of those things that, the we space is now a thing. It's like, it actually is something in people's consciousness at this point. But when I was with him in 1985, and we had a dual awakening. Most people, you meditate, like you were saying, you meditate, you're with a guru, you're with a spiritual teacher, and you hope, that some kind of personal liberation occurs, or some at least level of transformation and freedom from a sense of identity. But with us, we just had this big yes. You were saying you appreciated people's yes to this. We had such a yes to one another, and I think the readiness. He was such an obsessively ambitious spiritual man, young man. He wanted to get enlightened in a big way. And I had been very powerful in what I was doing and was completely surrendered to that. So we kind of crashed into each other with a ridiculous amount of attraction, and chemistry and all the man-woman stuff that was just off the charts. So we were meeting in so many levels, and we were very intense. When you're together and you have two people that don't really want to go normal. Most people like to get normal after a while. They don't want to be in that spiritual kind of intensity, but we weren't like that. We just were always there. And there was an awakening. There was an awakening that happened where we were inside of the consciousness together, and it never stopped. And it took us so intensely. And when that happened, I didn't care what it was. I wasn't trying to even understand it until he was in a car accident and was very badly brain injured, and then eventually took his own life. He was just crazy. It was a year and a half later. So when you're left with this two things, your beloved is gone, which is already horrible, but then the consciousness was shared. It wasn't an individual awakening. So I was just reeling with everything at once and not having a clue why I was left, why I had it, why I had to discover how to exist in the world without him and still have the sensitivity and the awakeness. And it was a big it was a big problem. And I kept teaching. I had a 7-year-old. And so it's been quite a journey since of continuing to teach. And then about 9 or 10 years ago, it became clear why. Why I had been left with that. So basically, the we space, the quote, awakening together was what we had had. Mm-hmm. And it was clear to me also, because I kept thinking I wanted it to happen with another man, right? And it wasn't destined to happen. It was destined to be the multiple beloveds. It was like, no, Patricia, you have to go beyond the one. And you need to find out, how do we open this together? How do we experience coming together with that kind of intensity and openness and connectivity into a larger being, the interbeing? It's like existence wants a big opportunity, not just two people. And so that's really kind of where I'm left now.
So what I'm hearing is that the universe has given you the chance by living it together with a person, and so giving you the purpose of your life to explore it with groups of people.
Well, the interesting thing was, I'm so trained as a teacher. I didn't, when you're 18 and it's 1970, there's no idea called being a teacher. So I just became trained, and I had so much skill. Actually, I was fortunate. I mean, you could have been an idiot, and I was given so much opportunity to discover what that is before the Peter thing happened. And then Peter happened, and I continued to teach. I mean, that's who I am. Transformation and people's spiritual awakening was what that's what I do. But then that was this anomaly of like, well, what the hell was that? Like, why did that happen? What am I supposed to do? And it didn't. Here's the thing that I think is interesting from an integral standpoint was I didn't realize that the culture wasn't ready for what I was given. So right around 10 years ago was when people started, Andrew Cohen, different people started to innovate. There was something called, we've done personal work for 3,000 years. I mean, at least the last 40, but definitely 3,000 years. It's all been about our individual anything.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, as a teacher, it just felt like I love people, but I can't do this anymore. Like, where's another way to wake up? There's got to be something. And then it was the thing with Peter. And I realized we were in such an intense awakening, and we were two imperfect people. We were not two enlightened people. And we were becoming awakened through the surrender to something that was happening between us. So I thought, interesting, if that's possible, then there's something possible if people can stop looking at their own process and working on themselves and working on their meditation and this. And, I mean, we're so busy with ourselves, which is a good thing. But it was like, what if we bring all those people that have done a fair amount of that to some other place?
Okay, you are talking about possibility, and at this point I want to take the trampoline and to acknowledge our guests here in the audience, as far as, at least as I know them, because there is Jon Freeman, who was our guest, and he talked about the science of possibility. And I see Michael Thomas, I see Margarita Christolotus, I see Diana Eva Reuter, and Mel and Sanders said she would come later, or maybe she makes it. And there are other people who haven't appeared yet in the comment stream, but welcome and thank you that you are here with us to listen to Patricia Albere and her groundbreaking new wisdom technology, from personal awakening to mutual awakening.
Oh, and this mutual awakening, of course, is the new part, the newest part of the show. I hate to use the word enlightenment. Somehow it's getting a bad rap because sometimes it's kind of fake. But I'm using it here.
Well, it's lines and levels. I mean, from a mythical standpoint, there are people that are very gifted in a certain kind of spiritual energy, but they're distorted in other ways.
Yeah, and we have very uneven lines, that's for sure.
Some people do.
But the mutual part of this is beautiful, and I know that Heidi and I can sometimes share that kind of space, and it's absolutely marvelous. The individual self, the ego self disappears. Self does not. There's still, very much the uniqueness of each of us, but we flow back and forth without any friction, and something new arises, and that's the really great part of this. Something new comes out of being related in this kind of way, and so I know this is your work, and so I how do you explain this to people, this phenomena of something emerging that no one had any idea about before? And what is it that emerges?
Here's the way I see it. I mean, ultimately, I think it's a mystery, like all good things. I mean, really, love is a mystery. How do you explain love? What is that? That arises and changes everything.
You want to explain it. Yeah.
It's a little hard to explain. You don't want to explain. You just want to be in it. But what way I'm seeing, this interbeing is what had happened with Peter and I was we became something together. There was something larger that we were, and we were in it all the time. So I could feel him, he could feel me, even when we were 6,000 miles apart. We were always together. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would start to cry, he would call. So there was the distinctness, as you said. I felt more myself than I have ever felt, and vice versa. Do you know what I mean? I felt deeply myself, like exquisitely Patricia. But we were always together. And what's happening now with this mutual awakening is that the people that the deepest part of the work, the part that I'm the most interested in, is bringing together people who are willing to be committed for at least a year at a time. And
There is a question from Margarita, and she is asking this. I wonder what the teacher's role is for you. When the teacher is gone, what is left? Is this someone enlightened being still there, or some field of wisdom that we can evolve into or access?
Great question. What the teaching function is kind of interesting in this. What I find is the development of the people coming together. So you have 100 people, let's say, in the room that are, have done a fair amount of work. I mean, nobody's in there who's brand new. You need people that know how to disidentify from their egos, at least to some degree. And the teaching function, you do actually need a master teacher. You need somebody who knows how to work with people individually, so you're aware of, because you get 3 people together, you have trouble, right? You just get 3 people who try to go to a movie. It's a problem. So you have to know that in a real way, this is a very new domain of consciousness, and we are very new, all of us. We have, a friend of mine who's in one of those, teachers, where you have like Deepak and all the different people like in a group where they meet, these leaders and luminaries. They say it's very difficult. Often it's just very hard for everybody to find a way to actually work together. And these are very awakened beings, right? So it's the space of how do we work together is very new, and I'm learning too as how do we come together. So you do need a teacher. But most of what the teaching function provides is how do you orient? How do you keep turning people in the right way, so that when we are in the correct orientation, as the woman who called in, is something then takes over. Then when we're inside that together, then when Heidi speaks or you speak, then we're all, the whole thing is something's happening, and we are all completely in it together. But you do need the teaching function to keep kind of turning and building the being. It's like the enlightened being has to still be oriented correctly, because groups don't come together beyond ego. Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is also somehow a facilitation function, that you are sort of preparing the field, preparing the room, holding the field, and invite the other people in, and as far as they are, attracted to it, that they will join you and then reinforce this field of we-ness.
And absolutely, and also, Heidi, the field itself, as it gets stronger, the field becomes the being. You actually you feel it, like we become the cells in the body of something larger. So you feel yourself, but you feel like you're a part of it. You start to feel its consciousness and yours, and something very strange but very amazing starts to happen. And what happens then within that is the way that you separate yourself individually, our patterns of separation as humans, there's a pressure on that. So you actually start to feel things that are your ways of separating. And so there is some teaching in that as well of how do we keep letting go, because we are then in a process together for it and it for us. But, we're kind of the volunteer humans, because any bunch of humans is going to go through the membranes of separation that we're not even aware of most of the time because separation is normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Unfortunately, yeah, but we don't know how to connect.
And I'm crazy enough to think, you know, since I had the 4-year experience of not being separate, actually the next level of evolution is to break this membrane. And we need people that are willing to practice that intensively and not just for a weekend.
Now, you're saying that membrane makes me think immediately of Wilberian terms of a new holon emerging that encompasses
Absolutely.
the rest of us,
yes,
all of us.
and it's a living, breathing being. And it's very particular. It's also second tier. The other thing is I'm very committed, not because it's right, but just because I seem to be driven in this particular way, is that this awakening together is also it doesn't necessarily happen in second tier. You can have an awakening of connectivity in green very easily in postmodern. And it has a little more of an individual flavor and process and dealing with wounds and pain and, you know, all kinds of stuff. It's very different than the second tier awakening. It requires something different. It's calling for something different. It's got a different attractor. It actually moves people. I'm in the Bay Area, which is postmodern, you know, everything. And, you know, and we have teachers, and we have like a lot of people in this, you know, some amazing spiritual teachers, and so it's pulling out the elements of green that are still holding us to a different level of consciousness. And I find that fascinating.
We should tell the people who are watching who are not familiar with spiral dynamics, these words we use, green and second tier and first tier, they come from the levels of development which are outlined by Ken Wilber, and they were originally Carl Graves and Don Beck. So if you are interested in that, it's a very useful way of talking about the levels of development. Just name the colors. So
a shorthand.
They're different cultural worlds, and so there's a particular. I mean, I'm working when I do a 3-day intensive that has to do with taking people to the exact space in consciousness where we are convening, and it has to do with the cultural. It has to do with certain psychological levels. It has to do with a lot of things besides this mutual connectivity and deepening that. So my work is particular in that way, because there's a lot of undifferentiated we-space work, not undifferentiated, but it's working in different spiral dynamics levels.
Yeah. Speaking of levels, I'm thinking going back 200 or 300 years to a European coffee house in the 1700s, where everybody is so excited about rationality. Oh my God, we can be rational. We don't have to be medieval anymore, you know. And we sit around, you know, drinking coffee, getting high, and wondering, what the hell do we do with this rationality? You know, what can come out of this?
I can so relate to that, Mark. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I went to a personal growth thing. I hadn't been to something like that in about 8 years. You know, I went to something that, you know, it's very much like in your body and breathing down and speaking slowly and really sensing yourself and sensing what you're speaking and your body sensations, and, you know, doing some constellation work and various things that I love, that I've done tons of and I have a lot of respect for. But after doing this kind of work, which is about this larger being, and I'm inside of that, I'm part of it, my consciousness is everywhere now. So if I'm told to go in and down, you know, like I have to just feel the earth and the past, I feel literally the contraction. It actually feels difficult. I know how to do it, but it's like this work is bringing people who know how to do that. I mean, you have to actually develop that kind of sensitivity first, but it's actually leaning into the space of emergence rather than I'm in my own subjective, deep subjective experience. It's not just about your subjective, it's about something else. And it's fascinating to actually see the different, the different memes, the coffee house versus, being a serf in the manor house.
Yeah.
I can talk about two experiences I had in this sense. One is when we were in Los Angeles doing the course, 160 women in the room, and we sang, just improvisation. And this was so, the voice came out here, voice came out here. This was really the feeling to be part of a big organism, which is presenting itself. And for me, it was a sacred experience, really. I forgot to go back to my seat because I was in this different space. And then the other thing is what happens sometimes, and I find it fascinating, when you are together with people who are in tuned in the same field, then you say things you have never thought about before. I mean, it is as if you take out of the field something and express it, but it's not necessarily your personal thing. This,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It does, this collective being that if you, sort of make it part of what you're interested in, it gives you access to feelings, to a kind of creativity as well. I find that the deeper people are going, Barbara Marx Hubbard, who I'm sure you're familiar with, who's a futurist and the mother of conscious evolution, is a dear friend and colleague, and we practice together. We actually do mutual awakening together, and it's so amazing because things happen. Like I feel like last time we did it, we were like totally there. We're doing Skype. We're doing it this way, and I felt like something larger was holding us still. We were in this deep, still place while it was doing something. Like something was being transpired between us or hooked up that we both could feel. And we were being given some new DNA potentials, or I don't know what it was, but it actually felt like by paying attention to something other than my own direct experience of spirit and my own higher consciousness, some larger higher consciousness had hold of us. And it was
this is wonderful. I'm wondering, can I or you?
You go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering, people who watch could think, Patricia is something special because she is able to do that and blah, 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 blah. The question is, how can they learn that? How can they participate?
Yeah.
How can they tap into this field?
Well, here's my suggestion. It's not, if you do it, some people go, well, just show me how to do it and I'll do it. If you don't do it from the right orientation, like I was saying, part of the teaching function is to kind of get people, just like if you say, teach me how to meditate, I want to be enlightened too, and you say, close your eyes and breathe, I doubt that's really going to work. Maybe I'll just have spontaneous thing, but probably not so much. So what I suggest is that the first step is they go to mutual-awakening.com, and they can download a 77-page book that Jeff Carrera and I wrote about this perspective. So they have a deeper sense of like, well, what is she talking about? Really, what is she talking about? And they can, so it's mutual-awakening.com. When they get that, they also get a 6-week step-by-step way to work with some of the perspectives that are in there. So we're trying to do our best to make this make sense enough that people can then start to move towards doing it. And then from there, I actually do initiate people. There are like 3-hour virtual events where they can really have the practice with others that are really interested and willing. Because the problem with this is it's like meditation you can do by yourself.
Actually.
You can't do this by yourself, and you can't do it with just anyone. You actually need someone who wants to do it. You can't just try and say, "Will you do this with me?"
Yeah. You mentioned Skype. So evidently you can do this online with
Absolutely. You can do it on the phone. We do it on Maestro, and it's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blown away because I always was suspicious of, how deep can you go?
Mm-hmm.
But the depth, I just taught a 4-month class on the Shift Network, and that we had over 100 people, and it was from China, from all over the world, and every single time they would have a half-hour practice at the end where they would do mutual awakening, and it was amazing, just amazing. So, this is happening. I mean, it's available. It's a little, it's higher levels are more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So higher levels of consciousness. So it's more complicated because you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to have the right other.
Yeah.
What?
Good, really.
Good.
Yeah, because you talked about the separation at the beginning, and this is a way to overcome the separation.
Well, I think we're lonely. I mean, I do think that as developed as we are, you get to this end of, okay, well, I've done everything I know how to do, and life is good. But, where are my people? Like, where's the potential that I now know exists? How do I access that with Mark? How do I access that with you? Because if we just have a normal conversation or we start processing, or even if we meditate together, it doesn't necessarily, turn on. You have to get the thing to turn on, and I know how to get it to turn on. That's my job.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay. Sure.
Not that I believe this, mind you.
Oh, please, go ahead.
But going back to the coffee shop, and these probably guys considering rationality, what a way to go. My gosh, what would be possible? Well, then we had 2 centuries of progress, and everything that we can see around us is probably a product of that rationality, and also all the horrible things that have happened too.
Yeah.
So I'm asking not to predict the horrible things, but what will come out of this new we-ness? What I'm asking you to be speculative.
Yeah. Here, to be really honest, Mark, I don't know. I mean, I know that it would be like if you asked a pregnant mother, well, what is your child going to be like?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a baby, and that, you're hopefully going to give birth.
Well, the mother has some desires, however.
And you'll do the best you can to raise them, but who that one is going to be, like, if you're a parent, you have no idea, like, who they will be. I do think that what will be next is the awakening of these larger beings, of developing organizations, developing families, developing churches, where we discover how to be part of something larger.
Mm-hmm.
And that our consciousness is more fluid. I think the consciousness, instead of being self-reflective or the witnessing state, is going to be spontaneous. It's going to be no self-consciousness again.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I wanted also.
But I don't know. The negative part, I don't know. I mean, we'll have to deal with our collective shadow, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, just go ahead and speculate. Pretend nobody's listening. It's just between the two.
Another question.
Oh, you keep butting in.
This question. Hold on. So I think that what will happen is that, like with Peter, there'll be more love. That people will exist in a kind of intimacy, a closeness to their cat. A closeness to things, a feeling of being. Close to themselves, close to the moment, more available to be orchestrated and willing to not know. Mm-hmm. And the sense of guidance will be more immediate, the sense of spontaneity will be more immediate, and the sensitivity is going to be really heightened so that we will not be able to do to each other what we do. The only reason I can treat you badly is if I don't feel you.
Yeah.
If you're an object, I can treat you
bit in my question.
Sure.
Because we were saying we are in a we space, and many people talk today about we spaces, but we space in itself doesn't do that. We have we spaces where horrible things
totally.
happen, you know. So
Mobs.
it's very, very, yeah, mobs. Or I mean, the Second World War began with a big we space, you know. Everything were, we want the war. So it is the orientation.
In anything, right?
Which is important.
There's unconscious. There's evil. You know, there's a connectivity that's unconscious. You know, you go to a football game. You know, there's a certain kind of collective consciousness. That's different than an awakened we space. I mean, what I'm doing is, I just finished writing my book. Yay! Oh my Lord! I mean, what a deal that is. But in the book, it talks about sort of a Maslow's hierarchy. You know, the place that I'm pointing to, and as an awakened, mutual awakening, is not even just at the level of actualization. It's at transcenders. You know, it's really the highest possibility of human consciousness. And so that's why the work that I'm doing isn't for the masses at this point. It's really for those of us like us who have done a fair amount of work. And it's taking all of the people that have done really good work in postmodern, you know, spiritual work. They've meditated, you know, you've worked on your shadow, you've been in therapy, you've done NLP, you've done various things, and maybe continue and need to continue. But you're ready to go exploring in a different domain with others of a similar level of development. So that's the we space that I'm innovating in, and I feel driven to. You know, I mean, this is so choiceless. I feel like I have no choice about this whatsoever.
And I want to actually give you a personal thanks, because in this recent video I mentioned where Ellen Steinfeld interviewed you and Jeff, it became clear that there was something that the world, that evolution, was asking from us, you know. And I started to look at my own self and my own endeavors, incorporating that viewpoint. It's not just what can I do? How can I manage my way through this maze? You know, make a living, blah blah blah, and just allow this purpose to emerge in a way. It's a very different feeling, and I'm very grateful for having that been processed so nicely.
Yeah, and that in our age it is still possible, you know. I mean, it comes a little bit to what you said. When we were young, these things were not yet
possible.
Yeah, was not yet possible. So I'm so happy that we are living in this time, still living, and can help to bring these things ahead. So
it's very exciting, and I think especially for the boomers, you know, like we're all baby boomers, is the young people are kind of wired. They're ready for collective consciousness. I mean, the internet, it's all like there's something happening, the instantaneous connectivity. You know, right now, if someone, you know, if the aliens landed in Sausalito and I started a tweet, like the world would know in the next 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, so, please do tweet. Yes.
So there's something really happening, but as it, you know, I think that it's the time for it, and it's the time for us to come together. And the more that we then are orchestrated, because individual purpose is something everybody was working on the last 4 years. That's different than this feeling of, ooh, I'm part of something with everyone else, and I need to listen to my part in this so we can do this together. It has a little bit of a different flavor.
I would like to bring at this point up a comment which is already a little bit later, before. Michael Thomas says, quality compatibility is gold.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Who you're doing it with does matter.
And Jon Freeman says,
how different is this from what people are doing in processes like presencing?
I'm not completely sure. I've talked with Otto, you know, on my podcast thing, and I think that this is my focus, and the focus of the people in the Evolutionary Collective is to really intensely connect, like in almost like the mystical dimension. So it's the deepest origination point of being. We don't have any other purpose. We're allowing something to get developed. It's like an enlightened collective. And from that, the teachers, the people in business are making application to the world that they're in. I think it's a little bit different than when you're working in business and you're creating the presencing. You still have some purpose that you need to fulfill on some level, if that makes sense. And I think it's a slight difference, but I think Otto's work is awesome.
Then here's another comment from Michael Thomas.
I believe selective and collective directions and definitions are extremely different, but both can collaborate with proper balance to form a higher platform of consciousness and development.
So I
think he's agreeing with you.
I think so.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Patricia, we are sort of at the end of our show, and we very much thank you. You can say it better than my strange English. Come on.
Oh, you know what? I wanted to say thank you in a sort of an addition to what I said earlier, because even as I was speaking about it, I was realizing that our show itself is part of this process. This is something we can do, something we can collaborate with others. It doesn't get in anybody's way. You know, it's just a complementary. It gives us great joy to be able to provide a platform for people like you, for example, to spread your message. This is really wonderful.
She actually has a lot of platforms. She didn't wait for us, and we are especially grateful that you came to us little people to talk with us.
I also appreciate that you do this together. You know, you do this from a mutuality, which is really very beautiful. So it feels special. No, I really appreciate being with you. And just to suggest to people again, go to mutual-awakening.com and, you know, find out. Here's the thing I want to say to people is it could be the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like there are people where when you all of a sudden trip over this new possibility, something in you goes, oh, that's what I was waiting for. Because I feel like I'm out looking for, I'm sending like the vibe out. There's the people that are supposed to be innovating here. Not everybody, but there's the ones I know for sure are, you know, that spirit is like pulling us. So, you know, I'd love for the people that have some little inkling that they might be that one that they should find out for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we want to give again a hint up here. Please go to our website, thewisdomfactory.de, and subscribe for the newsletter, because I will always send out the next shows and so on. And there is a special gift, an iBook, which you can read on your Mac or as a PDF on your computer, normal computer. And if it is an iBook, if you can read it as an iBook, there are videos, there are photos, there's text. This is just amazing. And I love to do it. It is a result of the last season, of the first season. It is the beginning. There will others following up to that. I will create a whole library of these wonderful books. So please go to thewisdomfactory.de and subscribe for the newsletter and get your free gift. And the other link, remember, this is, I don't know which site it is.
I think it's up here.
Okay, one of these sites, the bit.ly link. Go and see what John Dupuy, our first guest in this season, has to offer you, and watch the video, watch what he told us, because it's amazing help to get into
another state
of consciousness, let's say, and which will resolve many of the everyday moments, let's say, problems of stress and whatever we suffer from during this life. So, I think we thank all our watchers and the future watchers, and please write your comments. We will answer, and Patricia will answer too. If you have additional questions, write it. Don't hesitate, and contact her for her free ebook. And we will meet next week. Next week I will talk about my wisdom technology, which is inspired very much by feminine power, but it's a sort of a special way.
Yeah. So little recognition here.
Yeah, totally.
So thank you very much, and bye-bye. See you next week.
So long.
Bye.